All right, everybody, welcome to the final, guys. We're here for another episode of horror movie reviews, horror movie talk, and maybe a little abuse between the hosts.
Probably more than a little, the rate this is going.
Yeah, we should have recorded the pre-show.
I'm Jack, and here as usual, I've got my two co-hosts, Jason Brant and Hunter Shea. How you doing, fellas?
I'm doing better now that you're here, and you're not leaving me alone with this retard.
And I could blow this whole show up if you just give me a reason. So just take it easy there, Brant. Sip your scotch, your fire water.
I probably shouldn't have led with that.
Well, guys, this week we didn't have a major release or an interesting VOD to talk about, so we're going old school. And we're going to go back to Night of the Creeps from the 80s. I'm looking forward to having that conversation. How did you guys come about picking that movie?
I said, Jason, what movies came out when you were breastfeeding your mama? And he said, "Oh, Night of the Creeps."
That's probably not terribly far off.
Exactly.
I don't remember. I think there was just nothing interesting, and I think I'd seen that on. Was it Shudder that this was on?
Yes.
I think that's pretty much exactly how it came about. We had no idea what to do.
Well, I'm excited because there's no real rules to what we do here. So we're going to sometimes talk about new things. We're going to talk about things you can find on demand, and we're going to go back to classic movies or forgotten classics or schlocks, whatever we want to talk about. So I'm looking forward to this one. But before we get started, Hunter, don't you have some exciting news for us about what's on the horizon for you?
I don't know if it's exciting, but we did the show last week, and then when we were done, I said to Jason, I just had a book come out, and I didn't even mention it. I'm terrible. Like most authors, I'm absolutely terrible at this. But I have a new book that just came out with Severed Press. It's Megalodon in Paradise. I like to compare it to The Thing set on an island, and an alien is a shark. It's available in ebook and trade paperback. It is batshit crazy. I was supposed to be a novella that centers around these 7 characters, and it just took a life of its own, became a full-length novel. So that is out there, folks. Go to huntershea.com and check it out and enjoy. It's all for Shark Week, which is now, is it over? Is Shark Week
Shark
done?
Week is over, but Sharknado 5 is premiering this week. So
that's right. And it came out on Shark Week, so it's all good.
Yeah. We're sort of in Shark Month.
I'm going to race Michael Phelps in a mermaid costume.
I'd pay to see that.
Don't make me get my costume out.
All right, Jason, you want to plug anything before we get going here?
No, I don't.
So we can lose more
like he does.
He's got it. He's got his hair plugs. That's all the plugs he needs.
Yeah, hair plugs. I just don't dye
it. All right, well, let's get to the news because, guys, I have big news. Do you know what time it is?
It's time to get ill.
Miller time.
It's Tubby time.
Oh no!
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Duplass has revealed that Creep 2 is officially filmed. Filming is complete. They're putting the final finishing touches, and it's coming soon, according to him.
I can't wait.
Creep, of course, was a sort of out of the blue found footage movie that is just so refreshing and fun to watch compared to most of the crap that comes out. We're pretty excited about that, and I had no idea they were working on a sequel. He's got some other stuff coming on HBO soon. This just came out of the blue, so I'm pretty psyched for this.
I thought I read that Duplass has something like a 5 or 6 movie deal with Netflix, and I know that Creep was, I think, the first one out of the box. So I am psyched to bring Peach Fuzz back into my life.
I'm surprised it's taken this long because that movie seemed to jump out of nowhere and everybody loved it. And I guess I just thought his next movie with Netflix was coming right away, but I'm pumped.
Well, what was the name of the werewolf?
Peach Fuzz.
Peach Fuzz. I'm wondering, are they going to go back to Tubby time, and will Peach Fuzz be back for an encore?
That crap in the bathtub just irked me so bad while I was watching it. Like, this is so bizarre. It was good.
Do you think we should do an episode where we all do Tubby time live?
Oh, do the podcast from tubs.
We'll be all together in the same tub. We'll meet somewhere on the Jersey Turnpike in a hotel, and we'll do Tubby time and do a show.
Unfortunately, people, this is the last Final Guys podcast you'll ever be hearing.
Signing off.
It's an idea. It's a stunt.
Hunter has lost his mind.
Why don't you and your megalodon go take a freaking bath together and call us when you're done?
I'm willing to commit more than you two. Okay, fine.
Okay. So a long time ago, when Silence of the Lambs came out and serial killers became sort of in vogue, and suddenly everything was about getting into the mind of a killer and profiling and all that, the guy who sort of started this whole thing in the real FBI was a guy named John Douglas, and they based Jack Crawford in Silence of the Lambs on him, and he was involved in the John Benet Ramsey case later on, and this guy wrote a book that I read twice called Mindhunter, and
Yes.
yeah, the book is actually Mindhunter Inside FBI's Elite Serial Crime Unit. And it's all about how he and these other people created the whole behavioral science behind profiling serial killers and interviewing them to figure out the way that they think. And they caught the Green River Killer and a lot of other things. Well, today the trailer dropped. There's going to be a Netflix series called Mindhunter, and it's basically this guy's story going back to the 70s. When profiling wasn't a thing, and they're interviewing Berkowitz and Manson and all these guys and catching other serial killers. So this is going to be a Netflix series, and it's coming out in October 13th. The trailer I posted on the Monster Men page. Oh man, it looks good. Very excited about this.
Oh, I didn't see the trailer. I'm going to check that out.
It's a great book too. I mean, with the whole craze of serial killers and everything, it was really interesting to see sort of the guy who started the whole thing. So very excited for that. And again, that's on October 13th. That's coming out.
Nice. There's
hope
so
that's
much
a
stuff
Friday.
coming out this October. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So my last piece of news really is along those lines. There's a bunch of stuff coming to TV. AMC has 3 new horror anthology series coming out. First one is called Shock Theater, and Greg Nicotero, who's the guy behind the special effects in Walking Dead, he's going to direct and produce this. And here's the description. Every episode will unspool a new story, but pay tribute to the B-movie classics. So Nicotero's got a great resume. He's been involved in a lot of the classic horror movies over the past 20 years.
I like the sound of that.
So very optimistic about that.
Yeah, you can count me in.
The next one is called Underbelly. This will examine the darker side of pop culture related to the fan experience, celebrity, greed, alienation, obsession, and vanity. Whatever that means.
Vanity from like Prince fame.
Yeah.
She passed away though.
The executive producers, it doesn't say who's going to. I don't know if this is going to be something that's hosted or if it's a documentary or what, but the guys behind it, Daniel C. Connolly and Chris Hardwick's production company, Fish Ladder. So it sounds like it's going to be sort of a documentary kind of thing or something like that, but I don't know.
Sounds cool.
We worked with a Dan Connolly.
I don't think it's him.
But I really don't think it's Dan at all.
Third one, and Hunter, I think you're going to like this. Wicked West from Jason Blum of Blumhouse is a nonfiction anthology series about some of the most horrific and 100% true tales of the Wild West. Stories of sadistic serial killers, murderous black widows, bloodthirsty family clans, and local legends laced with the supernatural.
Oh, I need a cigarette after that.
Yeah.
Just the description alone. Oh my God. When does that come out? I have to have it.
I don't know when these are coming out, but I would imagine watch for them in the fall.
Oh my. Yeah, that's right up. That is in my wheelhouse right there, boy.
I could see one of these piggybacking off of Walking Dead to get it rolling, you know?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's
So
nice to
that's,
see AMC stepping up in such a big way.
yeah, well, you know, they've got Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, and I don't know what else on that channel is getting any viewership. So they've got that the Badlands show or something that I've never watched. But this sounds optimistic. So yeah, it's a pretty good time to be a genre fan.
Doesn't AMC, don't they do Preacher? Or does someone else do that?
They do Preacher, and as a matter of fact, I've been DVRing it, but I haven't watched it. That's a show. Yeah, I gotta really get into the right mindset to get back into that.
I still haven't watched it. I've heard pretty good things, but I just haven't got around to it yet.
Watched the first season, I enjoyed it, but there's something that I haven't gone and pulled the trigger. But I'm loading them up. I'll catch up. So, anybody else have any news? That's about all I've got.
You said underbelly. It didn't show my underbelly, so I feel like I've restrained myself now. I feel like I'm now in line. All is good.
That's great. I'm glad. I think we would lose viewers, maybe get Bigfoot sightings if you start pulling your shirt up. So let's avoid that.
It's not that hairy. Oh yeah, it is kind of hairy. I used to think I was part Greek.
Now it's time to do what did we watch, and one of the things that we've got to do here is there's a specific movie that we said we were all going to watch and talk about. So I don't know if we want to do that at the end of what did we watch or at the beginning of what did we watch.
Let's save that.
Oh, we're going to save that.
Okay, so
there's some edging.
Jason, why don't you go first? Tell us what you watched, and we'll get Hunter to stop talking, and then we can go from there.
We joked that he was the problem, and the last 3 weeks, it has been proven he is the problem.
Forgive me for bringing levity, a little bit of intelligent wit, a little bit of lowbrow wit to the show. Whatever.
Yes,
go ahead.
That's what we'll call it.
Tell us how you frittered away your time on this green-blue globe.
I actually managed to waste a lot of time this week. I started with
surprise
a movie called The Phoenix Incident from 2015.
I saw that in the movies with my mommy.
This came out in the movies?
Yeah, because Ridley Scott produced it, so they did get a release. We saw it in either early spring or late winter.
All right, well then let me ask you, what did you think of it first?
I thought that it would be a very fun movie if it was about a half an hour long. Like, it was only like 75 minutes, and it felt too long. Because it was a lot of the same stuff that you always see, but I thought if they just got to the brother trying to find, what was his brother trying to find his sister, was it? Or no, somebody trying to find an old kiss. I even forget. That's
no,
not
it was
memorable.
4 guys out in Phoenix who disappeared.
Right, but then there's
Phoenix Lights.
But then there's people trying to find them afterwards.
Right.
Right. I think if they just concentrated on that, it might have been fine.
So basically it's one of these faux documentaries about missing people, and they've recovered the footage of what happened to these guys, and it leaked to the filmmakers kind of thing. We've seen this movie a ton of times. This is just better made than the majority of them. It has some found footage stuff in it. It has some fake documentary stuff in it. It has some decent effects at times. Then a couple times the CG is... but it's worth a watch. It really is. If you like these kinds of movies, which I usually do when I see a fake documentary, I usually watch it. Most of the time I don't like it, but I always end up checking it out. So Aliens fake documentary, it's decent. I think I saw it on Amazon. I think I rented it for $1 or $2. It was pretty cheap. I think so. Then I watched a movie called The Night Shift, which was available on Amazon Prime from 2016. Don't watch this. Avoid this at all costs. The only thing that was good is there was a very attractive lady who was very naked in it for about 30 seconds. That's it. I mean, don't watch this.
So Mr. Skin this instead of watching it.
Exactly. Seriously, just look this up on Pornhub or something. You'll be happy. It's as low budget a film as you're going to see, other than maybe Bad Ben.
Or the movie we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, this probably had a lower budget than that. The actual high budget movie I watched for the week was Colossal.
Oh, is that with Anne Hathaway?
Yes.
Oh.
I watched this last night. It's finally available to rent on Amazon.
Again,
cool.
I went to the movies with my mom to see that. And one of my daughters.
See, I didn't even know this released in the States in the theaters. I had no idea.
Yep. I want to hear what you think.
I liked it. it wasn't the best, but there was some pretty fun stuff in it. I'd actually kind of talked to my wife after we watched it about some things I would have changed that I feel like could have helped the third act a little bit, but that's just me being an asshole. It was, the cover is very quirky when you see it, and the movie plays out exactly the same way. It is very quirky. There's some weird humor. There's a gigantic tonal shift about halfway to 2/3 of the way through that I was not a fan of at all. I think it had been quirky the whole way through. I would have enjoyed this more. But on the whole, I liked it. Good, not great.
See, that was my problem. It's just that tonal shift. I thought it was just, I didn't know, I don't think they knew what they wanted that movie to be. It was so weird.
There's a character in it that changes so drastically. He has nothing to do with the character from the first half, and it's so jarring. It didn't really work for me.
And he's not a minor character, which is the problem.
No, but the first half I thoroughly enjoyed. For anyone who doesn't know, Anne Hathaway's an alcoholic who lived in New York City, I believe, and a giant monster starts destroying, was it Seoul, South Korea, I think? Something like that?
Yes.
And she ends up finding out that she is somehow the monster, and her movements at a certain time of day are the exact movements of the monster, and that she's accidentally destroying the city. And it's funny, it's interesting until about the last act, and then it's not so funny anymore. So, worth a watch. I don't know. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it, but, you know, this is what we do. So, the
Jason
movie
Sudeikis is in that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm surprised with star power like that. The trailer came, and then I didn't even know it hit theaters or that it's on VOD yet. So
I can see why this didn't get a big release. It's got some issues with it. But so saving the last movie I watched till you guys get done, I finished In the House of Mirrors by one Tim Meyer. And this is a damn good book, ladies and gentlemen. You definitely should check it out. I kind of went on about it last week, shit on him a little bit to make him think I hated it.
You didn't want to drag it out this week and make him sweat?
No, I figured I got him good enough last week.
Being nice.
Excellent book. Get it on Amazon. It's super cheap. Totally worth a read.
You know, if you look at the back cover of that book, you'll find quotes from Hunter Shea and I.
Oh, Tim.
That's great.
Tim.
Yeah, because he has taste. And by the way, saying something is super cheap is not really a way to promote something.
Sure it is. Why would you want to spend a lot of money when you can spend a couple bucks?
That only works with girls in college. She's super cheap. She's awesome. Everyone's had her. It's great.
All my books are super cheap. Piece of shit. I started watching for Jack's favorite segment of the show. I started reading The Rising by Brian Keene, a novel I have never read, and everyone goes on and on about, so I figured I'd check it out, and so far it's excellent. I'm not that far into it, but
that book is great.
It's damn good. So
yeah.
And that's what I got.
By the way, I want to just comment. This is dedication. We have somebody watching live right now online at Stu Leonard's supermarket. So,
what?
Yes. So if you love Final Guys, you're going to watch us anywhere, but don't watch us when you're driving. But if you're online at the supermarket, watch us like this guy.
Is it the one in Norwalk or the one in Yonkers?
I believe, knowing this guy, it's Yonkers.
Now, the thing about Stu Leonard's is if you spend $100, you get a free ice cream cone. So
yes,
don't forget that, whoever it is who's watching.
Or frozen yogurt, which me and Jack have gone there just for frozen yogurt together.
Frogurt.
Like, remember we had like a big business meeting. We said, let's go get some frozen yogurt first.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. All right, Hunter, this seems like a good segue. What did you watch?
I actually did not watch much. I only watched the movie that we're all going to talk about, which I could not wait to watch it. And then, well, I'll save it for later. But I did watch a Shudder exclusive, We Go On. I hadn't heard of the movie at all until I read the write-up on it. And it's about a guy who's got all kinds of phobias, including his biggest one is fear of dying. And he offers up a $30,000 reward to the first person who can prove that there's life after death. The performance by, I gotta see, what was his name? Clark Freeman is so bizarre. Like, it's funny because you look at him and you go, well, that's kind of like a hunky guy, but he makes himself so awkward. You can picture he's a guy who's riddled with all kinds of phobias and has probably no friends and sits at home worrying about how he's going to die. His mother is played by Annette O'Toole, which the whole time I'm watching, going, I know who that woman is. I know who that gray-haired woman is. I know her as a young person. I remember her as having red hair, and she was in Smallville and 48 Hours and Superman 3. She is phenomenal in this movie because she's this very protective mother of her obviously troubled adult son. And he gets he puts an ad in the paper, gets all these people to respond, and they'll give him proof. He picks 3, and she's there to tell them, and literally, I have a gun. If you fuck with my son, I will fuck with you. It's a small movie, but it's really kind of creepy. And I thought it was, for something that you just stumble upon on streaming, I thought it was great. It's better than probably 80% of what's put out in theaters nowadays. And it had, in the third act, late in the third act, there's something that happened that made my wife and I jump, and we both were like, oh, like we did not see that coming. And that rarely happens. So definitely check out We Go On. It's on Shudder.
I saw that movie too, and I liked it quite a bit.
Right? I mean,
fun little movie.
It's fun. It's kind of dark. It's kind of funny. There's a little bit of everything in it. So I thought it was really good. So I watched the other movie, and the book that I read, I've actually finished a while ago, but I've been saving it, is Rise of the Chupacabras, which is part 3 of what I've learned is 4 Chupacabra series by Raegan Butcher. This one is all out balls to the wall craziness, and it has an ending again that will make your jaw drop, because it follows these Chupacabra hunters who are, some are former drug dealers, and it's just so, this is the most out there series of books I have ever read, and I enjoy it immensely. But the last chapter, my jaw hit the table. And then I wrote him, I said, hey man, that's great. This was an awesome trilogy. He says, no, there's another one coming. I'm like, what? So I cannot wait. Give me more Chupacabra love from Raegan Butcher. So everybody check out the whole series, please, dear God. If you're reading my Drek, you can read his better than Drek.
So it was good, but I could use a little more Chupacabra.
I need more Chupacabra. Well, we'll give you more Chupacabra. I mean, in the second one, they had like Mexican drug kingpins and lucha libre stuff and gladiator fights. Anything goes in this series. You all have to check this out.
I'm guessing he has the Chupacabra genre on lockdown.
He does, which is why I haven't touched Chupacabras yet. He's got it on lock. He's all the right. Man. So that's it. I'm done.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Jason, along the lines of what you watched last week and a few weeks ago, and then this movie that you watched this week, the genre of the faux documentary or the found footage movie that's presented like a documentary, I actually delved into that a lot this past week. So I also watched Lake Mungo last week, and I watched Savageland as well. And I'm grouping them together because Lake Mungo had been on my to-do list for a long time. And then I watched Savageland, and in sort of some of the reviews, they kept referring to Lake Mungo. So I watched them sort of back-to-back night after night. And they're both presented as documentaries that have found footage interspersed in them. And I'll start with Savageland, which you talked about a few weeks ago. But this is a movie where this town is like murdered, like 54 people or something like that are killed in one night. There's one survivor who is the suspect in killing. It's this Mexican guy who doesn't say a whole lot, and he's incarcerated. And there's some right-wing guys who are sort of trying to pin this on him, and there's some undertones of that going on. But then this roll of film that he took surfaces, and it's got still photos that are blurry and whatever, but of some sort of supernatural looking
Pineless.
I don't want to give it away too much, but the photos are pretty cool and vague enough that you're like, what the hell is that? But they sort of, and I really enjoyed this movie. There's a few moments where you really can tell it's people reading a script, but there's other parts that are presented like you're watching a real documentary. But the fact that instead of doing found footage, they did photos meant that every time the photo came in, you were like ducking in to see as much as you could. And it gave it like a really nice change from the usual, like, oh, here's the footage clumsily done or whatever. And then, so I thought it was a very interesting take. And then they do the thing where they sort of show the map of the town and they sort of plot like where everything happened and what his course would have been if he had done the murders, but really maybe that was the path because it's based on where the photos were taken. So I just thought it is not the greatest movie in the world by any chance, but for the found footage or faux documentary, it is definitely, I thought, in the upper echelon of it because it's very different than most of the things I've seen, and it was definitely engaging the whole time.
It's very well made. Very well made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few parts where you're like rolling your eyes.
So made for more than $300, you figure?
Yeah, but the budget was pretty low, but they did a great job with the budget they had.
To me, Bad Ben set the bar. If you're spending more than $300 to make a movie, then you're wasting money. God damn it!
So would you agree with me, Jason, going back to what you thought of that? Like, I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's like, I don't know if it's on Prime or it's on Shudder, but I didn't pay to watch it. A great, like, rental or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch, for sure, especially if it's free. The biggest thing that bothered me was I felt like the end kind of didn't have the punch I was hoping for. They did a great job with the photos. I felt like it was building, and I just never felt the payoff at the end.
There's one little thing they do at the very end of the movie, too, that was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would, without giving anything else away, I'd say rent it. You'll have a good time with it.
Yeah. I think if I'm trying to remember, the thing that bothered me too was the social commentary got a little heavy at times, which can annoy me. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. This one kind of annoyed me a little bit. It wasn't terrible, but, it's worth a watch either way.
Now, that took me to Lake Mungo, which I wish that I had been on the show to talk with you about it. I thought this was going to be a totally different movie based on the trailer and things that I had heard about it. Again, it's not the greatest movie ever, but I was engaged with it the whole time, and they did a few things very differently from any movie I've ever seen. And it was another one of those things that when they showed, it was sort of like a documentary and they're interviewing people, and then they would show footage from things or photos. And again, it was one of those things that whenever they did, I'd be like really close up, like what's going there. And I think they did a kind of a good job with that. There's one sort of jumpy thing that happens towards the end of the movie that I thought was pretty effective. So overall, I thought it was another one. I was like, oh, this is a really good rental. Like, it's on Shudder. If it was a couple of bucks, I would have enjoyed watching it. Again, much better than like some of these crappy found footage movies I've been watching lately, like Heidi or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is actually...
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Swiss Family Robinson myself.
No, not that Heidi. The Annabelle.
Oh! I shouldn't have said what I said.
Lake Mungo, you could tell, had no budget, but what they had, they used really, really well.
I thought the actors were better in Lake Mungo, and it turns out that they improv'd it. So they had the gist of what they were supposed to say, but they didn't script it so that they would just talk more naturally about it. And I read about that afterwards, and I was like, well, that's why. Especially the father. I thought he did a really good job in it of coming off as genuine.
Which one did you like better?
I think I enjoyed Savageland more because I really enjoyed the photos. And I was like, what the hell? You're kind of like, what are those things? But, in some ways, Lake Mungo probably had better acting in it. And Savageland was probably a more interesting movie overall.
See, I want to say Lake Mungo so I can keep saying Mungo. Mungo.
Lake Mungo is a horrible name for that
Mungo
movie.
It has almost nothing to do with the movie until the very, 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 very end.
Mungo Jerry didn't even do the music for it.
Damn.
Another movie, moving on, that I had been meaning to go back and watch for a long time, and then it happened to come on like HBO one day when I got home, is Insomnia with Robin Williams and Al Pacino.
Hoo-ha!
Hoo-ha! And I always got a kick out of that movie because of tired Al Pacino. And the fact that like he's in Alaska, it never gets dark, and he can't make his hotel room dark enough to fall asleep. He's a cop with some shady things in his past. He goes up to investigate a murder. Robin Williams is the killer. Their lives become intertwined. And so it was fun to go back and watch it now. And man, did I really... Robin Williams just crushes it in this movie. He's so good.
He is. You know why Al Pacino couldn't sleep in that movie?
Why?
He was drinking too much of that Dunkachino.
Ooh-ah.
I'm drinking too much of the Dunkachino. He's making a movie in my town. My daughter has... she put in her application to be an extra.
The funny thing about that is, the big thing is he could have gone to the front desk and been like, can I get some darker shades, or can I get a mask, or taking some pills? So I wasn't totally buying the premise of I can't sleep. But
I wondered how much of that was supposed to be his conscience too.
Yeah.
It's a generational thing too, because he's our parents' generation. My father wouldn't take a damn thing to fall asleep, no matter how long he didn't sleep. It just wasn't in his wheelhouse.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I saw it in the theaters when it came out, and I really dug it. It's a Christopher Nolan film, so there's going to be a certain level of quality, even if it's not the kind of story you want or whatever. It's going to be well made. And you're exactly right. Robin Williams is great. Al Pacino does some really interesting stuff, and Hilary Swank kills it. It's a solid movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was fun to watch. Now I think it's time we
let's do it.
We all watched Bad Ben.
We did. I liked it. God damn it! I think I liked Bad Ben the most because I think I had the optimal viewing. I was in the Maine woods in darkness with my headphones on, and it just every sound and everything it got to me. As funny as that guy was, and I could watch that guy 24 hours a day, there were some moments that really made me jump. So for $300 frickin' made by himself and was spelling things wrong in the credits. I mean, God bless you.
Well, thank you, Captain Extreme, for having to show that you like the movie more than everybody else. But I saw this movie way the hell before you. And
so what?
So I've just known way more. And also, if you're that scared
to do with your life,
for an Elton John looking freak like you to get that scared from it, come on.
You cannot make fun of the Bad Ben OG, all right?
I was crocodile rocking all day, and I was bad benning it at night.
That was one of the...
Bad Benny,
Bad Benny,
Bad Benny, and the goddammits.
That movie was one that a friend of mine saw it, and he just comes in and he's like, "Dude, you got to see this movie, Bad Ben. It's like this low budget found footage thing, and you kind of got to see it to believe it." I went and watched it, and I was like, "Yeah, it's not the best movie in the world, but it's certainly one of the most entertaining ones." And there's some great moments of they do pull off some great stuff with the found footage. Like there's a figure that goes by the door that's kind of creepy and stuff. And then there's Jason, I'll let you take the best part of the movie, but there's like some pretty well done stuff, and there's some pretty hokey stuff in it. But the whole thing that carries is that guy, and it's like I've got too much invested. I'm gonna film this and everything. It's just a very entertaining movie.
I put everything into this house. I just gotta flip it.
What did you think was the best part?
The seance. I wanted to let you talk about the seance because I know that's your favorite. That's kind of like when he does that, and like when he goes out to the little grave thing in the backyard, or he finds all the blood stuff. There's like certain things that you're like, okay, like some stuff happens that like if this, I don't care how much money you have in a house. If a couple of these things happen, you'd be like, all right, that's it. I'm going to get the cops, or I'm going to go whatever.
Yeah, I'm burning this house.
But the way he deals with it is just, it's great because
Yes.
he's just talking to himself.
Yes.
And he's like doing like a selfie while he's doing a seance and stuff.
Well, the best part is one point he goes, I don't know why I feel the need to record everything in my life. And that was awesome.
Yep. Yeah, his reactions are totally what make it. When he finds the little grave he discovered earlier, he finds that it's been dug out, and he just goes, I'm not going to overthink it, and then he just goes back in the house. That's it. That's all he says.
He's going to sell that toy on eBay. Jerk. So when you get past Bad Ben, there is a prequel.
Yes, we can all agree you should watch Bad Ben.
Yes.
100%. You
Then
have to
recently-
watch this.
Then recently we found out there's a sequel, so we have all decided to go back and watch Steelmanville Road. Hunter, go. You may go first.
All right. Steelmanville Road is the street that this very nice house is on, which is down in Egg Harbor Township, Atlantic City. And those of you who are not Tim Meyer might not know that this is where the Jersey Devil legend is. But we go back to the family that owned the house before, God damn it, bought the house. That's officially his name. And here's where things go kind of wonky, because before you had one interesting looking dude just wandering around the house, and if he was a bad actor, it was fine. The problem here is there are 4 bad actors all interacting with each other. There's one thing bad actors can't do is play off each other. And this goes to a place, Jersey Devil, that I didn't see coming, but it's such a freaking mess. I don't know what it meant when it was all like they gave you answers that just created more questions when it was over.
There's things in this movie that you kept talking about, your jaw dropping. I was just astounded by some of the bad things that happened in this movie. There is a ghost that appears and talks. That the 3 of us with my iPhone could shoot a more realistic ghost, and the acting out of this guy is just like it was like a local cable ad for a carpet.
Dude,
with the best prices, like.
And that ghost made the special effects in Land of the Lost look like Stanley Kubrick had his hand in them.
Yes. And then there was like voices off screen, like ghost voices that would happen. And it got to the point where I'm like, I have no idea what this story is anymore. There's like, and then the Basil Exposition's mother, that woman who comes in and almost everything she says is trying to explain things. And she's like, talking to the ghosts.
She's like cheap ass community theater Lynn Shea.
Who's Lynn Shea?
From Insidious, not Insidious. Oh yeah, yeah.
Kingpin.
The mother in Detroit Rock City.
Exactly.
So, my take on this. Are you done, Jack?
Yeah.
It feels to me, Bad Ben seemed like a guy who was decided he wanted to make a movie and was kind of figuring out how to do it. It seemed pretty much like a one-man show for the most part. He's figuring out how to do some of the effects, figuring out how to do some of the sound stuff and shoot it and make it interesting. And it totally works for that reason, because he didn't know what he was doing. I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the guy does commercials or something. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it seemed like because he couldn't do a lot of the effects and things he tries in Steelmanville Road, that it made it more effective. He had to have someone walk behind a door, and it's a little creepy, and he had to do some things like that with sound effects. And in this, it seemed like he knew more about how to make a movie and tried to do more, but it actually felt like a detriment to the movie. He figured out how to do the ghost effects. So then they shouldn't have been in there in the first place, honestly. And if you're going to put them in, you need to do it really sparingly. And a lot of that stuff's really in your face. The acting worked in the first movie because he's so goddamn funny. But when you take him out and you just have bad actors who aren't funny, it doesn't work as well.
No.
There's also a little bit of like the Jaws, where when you don't see the shark, it's scarier. There would be things in the first one where he looks up the stairway, then he walks away. When he comes back, there's a statue that's been moved to the stairway. And you're like, oh my God, that wasn't there before. In this, Like
Exactly.
he leaves the room and the camera shows it goes jump out of the attic and do something, and you're like, okay.
Exactly. I felt like he was learning how to do some of these effects, and then he was using them too much, and it didn't work well. And we've all said it. The best thing about Bad Ben is him, and when you take him out, I'm just not going to be as happy with it.
I want to see a remake of The Great Escape and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with him playing every part.
A one-man show on Broadway, like
Oh my God.
Patrick Stewart does A Christmas Carol.
I want him to replace Channing Tatum as Van Helsing in the next movie.
I have to tell you, that killed me to give you that piece of news. I wanted to deliver that myself so bad.
Oh, that made me puke in my mouth. That was so bad.
So, Steelmanville Road, to me, I would only recommend it in the so bad it's good category of a movie.
I'm going to recommend it just because while I was looking up stuff on this guy, I found out there's a third movie coming.
I was going to say I knew there had to be a third because it's just going to keep going backwards. That's
Well, I hope
feel.
it goes forwards and we just see him crawling out of the basement in a sequel like, oh, motherfucker!
You fucking Jersey devil!
I'm back, baby!
I gotta flip this house!
Oh, that'd be great if like one of those home flipping shows came in.
He's chained up in the basement. Well, shit!
Oh, that'd be great.
They only
you,
find him
Ben.
because he's swearing in the basement.
Fucking Ben! When
I like when he's on the phone with the guy, and he's just be like, "Ah, Jesus Christ, I'll be right up."
I love when he had the shit beat out of him by a ghost. Yeah.
Okay, we
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
got to get to the main feature because we're running long here.
Weeping
So,
in his boxers. What a jerk. Okay.
okay, the main feature tonight is Night of the Creeps, which was this a 1986 movie?
It was 1986. It was set in college in 1986, the year I went to college.
Okay, so before we get to it, let's just get a couple of things straight. First of all, this is going to be a pure spoiler conversation. So if you have not seen Night of the Creeps and don't want to be spoiled, hit pause and go watch it.
Kid of life.
If you have not
31
seen,
years, people.
and if you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? This is a classic, must see. Number two,
Spencer is excused because he's not anywhere even near 31 years old.
right. Number two, if you are going to leave now and come back later, don't forget to go to finalguys.com. You can find all our links. We really appreciate if you comment on our show, if you would share the links, download the podcast, check us out on YouTube. Views are really helpful. Reviews are appreciated, and sharing and tweeting us is also appreciated. So that's my pandering for us. Check out Jason's book. Check out Hunter's book. I got nothing besides our stuff and Monster Men. So with that, Night of the Creeps, who would like to start?
Sure, I'll jump
Jason,
in here.
why don't you thrill us, Jason.
Nice.
This movie, I want to start off by saying it is directed by Fred Dekker, who we would know as fans of the genre as doing the classic The Monster Squad, which everyone seems to enjoy. Some people are obsessed with it. I don't know of anyone who doesn't actually like it, but some people think it's a modern classic. Some people just think it's a fun movie. He directed that. He did one episode from Tales of the Crypt, and he did RoboCop 3, which I think is the one where he flies.
When you talk about classics, to me, that's it right there. RoboCop 3.
Yes. Isn't that where he fights the samurai cyborg thing?
Oh, God. It's been so long.
I have no recollection of RoboCop.
I'm pretty sure it
3.
is. And that's it. But he's done 2 killer movies. And
Well, he also wrote the movie House.
Well, there you go. So
that's,
this guy,
for me, that's big time.
This guy had a couple years stretch where he was crushing it. And this movie is fantastic. I feel like it's a movie that probably shouldn't work. It feels like they just found lightning in a bottle, and it's amazing. They got Tom Atkins in it. They cast it perfectly. The handicapped sidekick guy is just phenomenal in this movie. I absolutely love him. I looked up a lot of these characters. That guy, the guy who played the handicapped character, never went on to do much else. The female character never went on to do much else. Fred Dekker.
You know what she was? You know who she was? The girl who in it, her and the blonde who in that sorority were the girlfriends of the geeks in Weird Science.
Weird Science. Yeah, that's the only other thing I recognized her from.
Yeah, so they both had that.
And this movie's fun. If you haven't seen it, this is quirky as hell. It's weird. It's funny. Tom Atkins absolutely crushes it in this movie as a character who just doesn't give a damn half the time and just wants to talk shit and beat everyone's ego down the rest of the time. It's gory. It's funny. It's cheap. It's amusing. I love this movie.
Let me quickly go through some of the story points of this so we can get it. So this movie starts off on an alien vessel where one alien who is, we can talk about the appearance of the aliens, is running from the other ones with a canister.
They look like dildos, like pink dildos with mouths, faces that don't move because they're foam rubber suits.
They're like if E.T. had sex with a pig.
And their dialogue is subtitled in the alien language and in English.
In case you could speak the alien language.
So the one alien jettisons this canister, it goes to Earth. And now we're in the 50s, black and white, and it looks like the Blob. Like it's a college and all that. And there's an axe murderer being warnings going out over the radio. There's Lover's Lane, and this couple is pulled over by a cop. They end up in the woods because they see a meteor come down. The boyfriend goes into the woods. It's the canister. It opens up and something shoots into his mouth. Meanwhile, the girl is attacked by the axe murderer.
And the cop who kills the axe murderer is a young Tom Atkins.
It is.
Who was the jilted lover of the woman who was murdered.
Then that's end of like the pre-roll or whatever. Then we join it back, which when this movie came out, modern times, you're in 1986, and you were in the middle of every freaking 80s teen movie.
It's Pledge Week, which
Pledge
I don't know
Week
if
at the
Greek
college.
life. I don't know if Greek life goes on like that anymore, but that was straight up like Greek life was for me back in '86.
But I mean, you pick your 80s movie, like Anthony Michael Hall could have been walking in the background. This could have been the party and Back to School.
Yep.
Weird Science or whatever, like, and especially Hunter and I are older, so this was literally, I was in college when this came out, and so this was, if you were just flicking channels, you'd have been like, oh, what 80s comedy is this? Is this Revenge of the Nerds or something? Like it's right in there.
Although I kept watching this going, man, my fraternity would probably kick the living crap out of that fraternity. I was watching those guys going, oh, we would beat them mercilessly and take their women.
So then you meet your two main characters. The one guy's got a crush on the girl. The one guy's got crutches. They end up getting challenged by the fraternity guys to go to some morgue to steal a dead body. They end up in some secret wing where there's this frozen body that they thaw out. Sure enough, this slug-like thing gets out and starts reanimating bodies as zombies. And now suddenly we've got this like slugs infesting themselves into people and reanimating corpses, and it's kind of a zombie movie with an extra touch from there. So when you really saw the trailer for this movie, it was like, oh, it's a zombie movie. And then surprise, there was this comedy to it. There was these aliens. There was all these layers to this thing that, Hunter, I'm sure you can agree with me. I rented this expecting one thing, and I was like, oh, this is one of the best movies ever. Like,
oh, this is a top 25 horror movies of all time. It's not a parody of sci-fi and horror movies. I think it's a real loving homage with a wry sense of humor. If you're going to watch this movie, watch it for one line that Tom Atkins delivers when he's in the sorority house and the fraternity brothers that were supposed to be taking the girls to the big formal they've had an accident on the bus and they're zombies. And he says, girls, I have good news and bad news. Good news, your dates are here. The bad news, they're dead. I freaking love that line.
And his character is something else because he's this like tough guy.
Oh, who also is damaged and tries to kill him, like gas himself to death at one point. But I Want to Answer the Phone thrill me, and I keep wanting to do this for years, and I always forget when the phone rings. But to me, the movie, it has everything, and it's not. You know, what's funny? They take a movie like Scary Movie, makes fun of horror, and it's really goofy. This kind of plays itself. There's a small straight narrative in there, and they just have fun with everything. And I don't know if a lot of people notice all of the horror and sci-fi references in there. Did you notice the last name of everyone is a horror movie director?
I did.
So, and you have to look at signs and books people have in the background. It's all about genre, and it's a love letter to genre. And I've always held that movie close to my heart. I took my daughter when they brought it back into the theater at the Alamo by us. I brought my daughter to see it. I was like, I don't care if you're tired, you're gonna go see this. This is a must see. And when we left, and she was 16 at the time, she's like, Dad, this is like the greatest movie ever. I'm like, exactly.
You know, this movie, you can call it. Hunter, you and I have talked about this on Monster Men. There's horror comedies and comedy horrors. I'd call this a horror comedy, in that it's a horror movie with just enough humor to elevate it from just being a stupid zombie movie. You know, the humor makes it almost like Marvel does, where they make a movie that's like a serious movie with a lot of humor, and so it's not a comedy, but it's it's a spy thriller infused with comedy. Same thing with this. It's a horror movie infused with comedy and loving tribute to what came before it.
It helps that it's written and directed by Fred Dekker, who obviously has a lot of experience watching the genre and really appreciates it. And I think it really shines through in the movie. And Tom Atkins, he went from, oh yeah, he's the guy who banged Jamie Lee Curtis in, The Fog. And yeah, he was in, 8 More Days Till Halloween. Yeah, he was that guy. When he did that movie, it took him to God status in horror. He's one of those guys, if he ever goes to a horror convention, he'll beat out Bruce Campbell for the amount of people coming to see him. Guaranteed.
First of all, just mentioning Season of the Witch, he's great in that too. But yeah, he absolutely crushes it in this. He has one line where he finds out the cops have been screwing something up, and there was supposed to be another body there that wasn't. I don't remember exactly how the line goes, but he basically told the sergeant, whoever it was, he was going to stick his nightstick up his ass or something like that. And just the way he words it is so hilarious.
And of course, every Emmy is eating a sandwich that they're putting on the bodies and stuff. Like, they were just having a good time with this movie.
The line that stuck with me and my friend Tom when we first watched this was the custodian screaming like banshees. That's it. Whenever somebody says Night of the Creeps, we're both like, screaming like banshees.
Oh, that's so funny.
Speaking of what I was saying earlier, where I mentioned that this movie feels like something that shouldn't have worked, when you were describing the film, it's so convoluted with all the crap that happens in the first 20 minutes. It should not work at all, but I feel like the tone and the casting and everything just completely makes it work, and you get everything, even though there's so many plot points that don't even need to be in it, that it just, I don't know, it makes it funny in a certain way.
And I like it despite that kid who plays Chris, the main guy, Jason Lively or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's such a disturbing fish face. He's one of those guys, like he was Rusty in European Vacation, and I just crap on that movie because I couldn't stand looking at his weird...
That's who he is. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like going, how is that hot girl even remotely attracted to him?
Because he's the poor thing I didn't like. He's the poor man's Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh my God, he's like a pufferfish whose face kind of got squished in a little bit. He's so bizarre looking.
And Tom Atkins is a poor man's Tom Skerritt.
Oh, Tom Skerritt.
Now the guy with the crutches, another classic. Often in these slasher movies, you have like the wacky boyfriend or the guy who's always making the jokes or whatever. This kid was like Mr. Sense of Humor. And then he just like dies like unceremoniously.
Yeah. Didn't he remind you of like he had that kind of sarcasm like a Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, a little bit.
He actually reminded me of, in a complete genre shift, but the first couple seasons of Friends, when the Chandler character, all his character did was shit on everyone else in the show. Like, that's what this guy felt like. Everyone who stepped on screen with him, all he did was shit on them.
Yeah. It's kind of like Jason Brant.
What? No. What?
Very much so.
When he called that one guy Aryan Nation or whatever the hell he said. Oh, I love that guy.
I know, Jack, you love him because that kid looks a lot like Glenn Scarpelli, who I know you had posters of Glenn Scarpelli on your wall.
Who the hell is Glenn Scarpelli?
On One Day at a Time, he was the kid who came to live with the Romanos.
Oh, I didn't really watch that show, so.
That was an obscure reference.
So no, but
you know what? I say that because I watched One Day at a Time today.
The frat guys, though, there was definitely one that reminded me of that blonde guy who's in Back to School, and I think he might even be. Was he in Karate Kid? He is like a bad guy in tons of '80s movies. But there was somebody in there who was like the poor man's him.
Yeah, I know you. I'm not going to look it up, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Now, a movie that was made that was very reminiscent of this and also very similar to it was Slither, which James Gunn did. Now, Slither is a tip of the cap to Night of the Living Dead, The Blob, and Night of the Creeps, and amongst other movies.
But he says he never saw Night of the Creeps.
Yeah, James Gunn, thanks for stepping on my my lead there, because I told you that yesterday, you jerk.
I forgot. I was drinking.
Yeah, James Gunn says he actually says he never saw Night of the Creeps, even though this movie is like Slither feels like a sequel or a remake of Night of the Creeps in a lot of ways.
Weird things happen.
Good companion movie to watch. Like I might go back and watch. Slither just came out on Blu-ray. There's like a special edition. I might pick that up. There's
a movie they say is the German sequel to Night of the Creeps, but I've never seen it. I'm sure it's horrible.
Night of Z Creeps.
We have lots of scheitze and worms.
Is it yoga hosers?
The Bratzies.
I never finished that movie. I couldn't do it.
I hate myself, so I watch it to the bitter end.
Hey, I watch bad movies all the time, and I couldn't get through that.
Wow, yeah, that's saying a lot. Oh my God.
It's funny you mentioned Slither because this movie bombed, Slither bombed, and this has a slightly less ridiculous Army of Darkness feel to it, just that comedy, that kind of over the top, and Army of Darkness bombed, and I'm so glad there are suckers financially who keep investing in these films that I absolutely love. They lose their ass every time, but I love these kinds of movies.
I got to tell you, when I saw the revival, and they put us in the biggest theater in the complex, there wasn't an empty seat. And people cheered in the beginning when they introduced it, and when it ended, it was standing ovation. It was crazy. Might have something to do with all the beer. But
there's a handful of 80s, in particular, horror movies that are like beloved like this. Like I think Night of the Demons is one of those. But there's a few that are just like those cult classics that any horror fan like our age, you're like, well, what are the must-sees from the 80s? You'd be like, oh, you got to see Night of the Creeps.
Oh, the blonde in this is also in one of those movies from the 80s, Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, is she the main girl?
She might be. I know she's in that. The fact that she's in this, Weird Science and Return of the Living Dead, I mean, we should maybe have an altar with her picture on it.
We need to do a Return of the Living Dead episode at some point because that might be my favorite zombie movie to watch. It's not the best zombie movie ever made, but if I had to sit down and just pick one to watch, that might be the one I pick more often than most.
Oh, I dig that. I'd do that any day.
Plus, we get to see the scene in the graveyard, right? I mean... That's right.
Getting excited.
All right, so any other thoughts on Night of the Creeps?
We saw this on Shudder, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, Shudder, you better freaking pay us. Every week we're mentioning you.
We need to get stock in this company or something.
I know.
But that's it.
That's all. You just want to say we saw it on Shudder?
I just want to tell people where to get it.
This is actually part of, because there's a lot of stuff on Shudder that I'm like, I don't know if I'm really interested in that. Part of why I wanted to get Shudder was so I could track down older movies like this that I saw. I really haven't seen Night of the Creeps in 15, 20 years. So it was really good to go back and see it. And, you know, it holds up in in a nostalgic way. So
it's 2 time capsules in one. For the black and white section, it captures the version of America that we want the world to think actually was going on in the 50s, because the opening is 59, I think. And, you know, it's like Bobby Soxer's on the phone talking about boys and all that. And that's like the American ideal. We know it wasn't really like that, but that's what we like to push. And then you fast forward to 1986, and it's a pretty good representation of college life in 1986. And if you ever want to get a flavor for what was going on in 80s horror, besides the great proliferation of slasher movies, this is maybe the one movie to watch.
Special effects. If you watch like this and Fright Night, and when did The Howling come out? Like in American Werewolf in London, like there was people were trying stuff with special effects, and so this was the kind of thing that we were always searching out the great gore movies. And so like when a head explodes in this movie, we're just like, yes, this is a keeper.
There's so much exploding heads in this movie. Oh my god,
you really nailed it, Jack. I found this movie as a VHS rental in the 90s. I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard anybody even talk about it, and I just grabbed it. And this is the kind of movie that every week I'd go in 2 or 3 times, and I'm always searching for that gem I haven't found that I can't wait. And this is one of those.
Great. Well done on the choice. And if anybody out there has a request for our next sort of retro pick, let us know, because we'll need one in a few weeks.
And if you want us to do Return of the Living Dead, maybe we should do all of the Return of the Living Deads in one shot.
There's a whole bunch of them.
How many? Wait, I'm thinking 3. Are there more than 3?
Oh, there's more. There's like straight to cable ones.
Okay,
one is good. We could do for the original 3.
Look, 1 has the Pathmark guy. That's all I need.
So does 2.
James Caron. I think that's his name. If I pull that out of my ass, I'm impressed.
He moved to Tombstones, but not the bodies.
Oh, it's so
Poltergeist 3. I'd love to do an episode on Poltergeist 3.
You know what? I just heard an interview on maybe Scream Addicts with the guy who directed Poltergeist 3. Yeah, so I think I'm down for that.
That's a movie everyone seems to hate, and I think is damn good. It's not great, but the mirror work and stuff, the optical effects and everything they do in camera and that are so good, creepy.
Well, that was that director's specialty. He studied optical effects, so that he took all of his academic studies and just put it into that movie.
That might be a good one to do too.
I don't remember liking that movie, so I'm game for watching it again. I hated the second one.
So I hate the second one with a passion.
I think I hated the second so much I didn't see the third.
Yeah. I don't even know if I've actually sat through all of Poltergeist 3. I know I've seen parts of it.
Super fun for the effects alone.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the to-do list. Okay, well, with that, good job, guys, on the choice for this one. And everybody out there, thanks for joining us on this episode of The Final Guys. And what's on deck for next week? It's a big week for a movie next week.
This is Jason's movie right here because he's a fan of the books.
Oh, apparently The Dark Tower comes out this week. I didn't even know, in case you can tell.
Oh,
damn it! Somebody go ahead.
Finish in time for the dogs.
He lives in the Bark Tower.
Yeah, Hunter, take over while I mute myself.
Okay, we are going to go watch the Dark Tower movie, Stephen King's latest orgy of money making and maybe goodness, maybe badness. Who knows? I've never read the books. I've been saving them. Jason's read them twice, I think, which is remarkable. He says the coming attraction looks like shit. I think it looks okay, so we're going to try.
I think the coming attractions look very, very suspect. But it's got all right.
All right, hold on to your pinus. We're just about to enter the Dark Tower.
Apparently the crisis has passed. But how the hell do you read 18 books a week when you ever read the Dark Tower?
I have been saving them. Since they came out, I said, I'm going to save these for when I'm older.
There's not enough Chupacabra.
I got to read a lot of Chupacabra shit before I get down to that. And
I got to be 15%, at least 15% Chupacabra before I even consider it.
I am writing garbage every day, all day long. I don't have as much time as I used to have.
All right, so with that, we will bid you farewell. Thanks for joining us for Final Guys, and I'll see you next week with a little Dark Tower action.
Woohoo! I'll wear new glasses next week.
God damn it.
God damn it!